Today on SpearFactor, we have Alex from, Today on SpearFactor, we have Axel from Arctic Spearfishing, way up in the Arctic region of Norway, Arctic Circle.
Yeah.
So do you want to introduce yourself? Because I have a lot to ask you.
All right. Yeah, my name is Axel. I've been living here in the Arctic region of Norway for, I think, 9 years now. Had 5 years in Tromsø, which is kind of a big city in the north. But then I met my girlfriend and we moved to Lofoten. So I've been living here for 3 years. So basically you could say, because I'm originally from Sweden, but I kind of like immigrated because of the good fishing we have here in Norway. So spearfishing isn't allowed in Sweden, so I'm just, all right, let's move to Norway. I went on a lot of holidays to the north of Norway when I lived in Sweden. So then when I was finished with my studies and stuff, I felt like, let's try to live where you normally go on holiday and try to figure that out. So yeah, now I'm here and I have no plans on going back to Sweden except for visiting families. Yeah.
So that's interesting because in the US we think about going and visiting Sweden because that's like just the epitome of beauty to a lot of us in Europe and stuff like that. Yeah. And those picturesque Alps and all this stuff like that. But for you, why would you go vacation to Norway?
Yeah, it's if you're a fisherman or a hunter, you kind of always look for the best grounds. And up in the north of Norway, the fishing is really good. So that was the first thing that kind of attracted me. Like I was a lot of into sport fishing or fishing with rod before I started spearfishing. So then I started to look on Norway. Like many people from Sweden go to Norway to fish. But then more people started. Some of the people I followed, they started to move further up north. It's a bit more rough and raw, a little bit harder climate, but you get rewarded with much more fish. So Norway has this like really rich water since they have like a connection with the Gulf Stream, and you have that really good nutritious water coming in from the north. So they have a really good fishing. So so that was mainly why I wanted to go to Norway, like the nature and like the incredible fishing. I did before I moved here. I had 1 week each year. I went with my father to go up to the north of Norway to fish, and that was all I was planning on and was looking forward to. And then when I felt grown up enough, I felt, why don't I live there instead? It made a lot of sense then, and it still does.
Right. What do you do for work up there? Was it hard to find work?
No, like since I have a bachelor in social work, so that means you got to just find places where there are people. There's gonna be social problems there in different dimensions and shapes. So it was easy for me to get a job up in Tromsø because it's quite a big city, and so it was like two main things that I think made me decide to move. It was just like being close to what I like to do, and then also get the chance to meet new people and kind of like have a work situation where you don't have to commit too much to work. Just be able, like, you do your work so you could do like your free time. So I kind of took a lot of extra work, working night shifts, just to be able to dive as much as possible and explore the nature around there. So
yeah, that's the goal, right? Have that good work-life balance.
Yeah, and especially then it was, I met some really good people that I moved into together. We had like a house in Tromsø, and they also, like, it's one of my best friends, Sebastian and Ole, and one guy called Joel and his girlfriend Elizabeth, and we kind of just went spearfishing all the time. and where everybody was in line of that kind of, you work and then your free time was first. Now I'm in a different situation. I have a family now, and I still get to do a lot of diving and fishing and stuff like that, and through my guiding also as well. But it was a really good time, when you can just think of your friends and yourself, and you just hammer it out. You just do as much as possible.
I think everybody has that kind of golden age in their life.
Yeah.
And they're right before they have children, and they got young friends that are all single and ready, like, or just like same kind of boat. And then you just go super hard for 5 years, and then life moves on.
Life moves on. Yeah. So I kind of like, when I see people in that, they have that space, I kind of like say to them, like, really acknowledge where you are now, and kind of like, it's so good. I'm really where I want to be now as well. But it was really, sometimes I think I want to go back and tell myself, like, imagine this, what you're doing now, you're doing this with your best friends, and you are able to do what you want, like, as much as possible. It's just like a cool thing to do.
Right. So how did you transition from rod and reel fishing to saying to yourself, hey, I wonder what it's going to be like underneath, let's go, in this 30-something degree water?
Yeah, it was actually thanks to my my good friend, as I mentioned before, Sebastian. He is a guy I met through freediving in Sweden. It was actually my mother who introduced me to freediving, and she took me along to this like freediving club who does a lot of apnea training in pool, when you just hold your breath, and really, really hardcore freediving type of thing. So I met them there, and he and his father, it's kind of funny, like, me and my mother went to training, we met him and his father, and they were really into freediving, and they also went to Denmark to spearfish a bit, because it's legal there. So then they took me along, and then I just, got hooked immediately. I managed, I think I got a nice turbot kind of fish, and I was just like, the whole spear gun thing, and I always been like looking at, I remember I had like a children movie I watched where they were in Greece, and it was one guy caught an octopus there, so it has been like, laying in my head, like that would be pretty cool to do. And when Sebastian and his father introduced me to it, I was just, how can you do more of this? And it was a bit of a hassle, to get into Denmark, and you're not allowed to own a gun in Sweden, so it was kind of a a mission to get there and back. And then I done a lot of fishing before, and especially in Norway, where I got to learn the different fishes and how to fish for them, and also the areas there where they hang out. So then I thought, like, I can use that knowledge and just try to try to spearfish in those regions there up in the north, because there wasn't so many people doing it. So that was kind of fun to explore together with my friends up there, and like really exciting, trying to take the knowledge you have from sport fishing into spearfishing.
Yeah,
Halibut fishing with rod is like, can be really fun, but there's a lot of patience. Like, I managed to be good at finding the grounds for sport fishing after a halibut, like with rod. They're there, but they normally have like a bite period of like they get active once, and then it dies out for like 8 hours, and then it's back on again, or maybe not in 2 days. So I figured, like, maybe not wait for that and just spearfish and trying to find them instead when they're, kind of hunt them in a different way. So I think, when I don't know how it was for you when you first started spearfishing, but that's kind of a sensational feeling, like going in, almost like going into the woods with a bow. Like, you kind of like, yeah, I was hooked immediately. I don't know. How did you feel?
Very similar. Yeah. I think like most people, right? You start out fishing, so it's funny, like you know where from the surface, you have this vision in your mind of what's going on underneath the water, and you can figure it out based on currents, and you know they're around there somewhere. But then it's like the luck of the draw of, are they biting? That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
So when you take all those skills you learn from just being on top of the water, and you can get in the area, and then you jump in the water, it makes you such a better spear fisherman. But also, it's almost like, I feel like when you jump in the water with your gun and you're actively hunting, it's like you said, you're going for a walk in the forest.
Yeah.
And you're definitely being more proactive, which I really love. And then you're like, it's almost like, I don't know if you've ever done any like combative sports, but you like step out on the mat or you step in the ring. Yeah. That person steps in the ring and it's like, here we go. And it's literally like that feeling where it's like the fish is down there and I'm going to test my human self in the water in your environment. And I'm going to say that I'm going to win, like, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You describe it good there. I don't know. It's like it was a journey, like learning to, because I was good at freediving and I did a lot of deep freediving, apnea, just, freedive training in Egypt. And, you go down vertical on a line. And although I did like 2 months down there, and I thought like, oh, when I'm going to Norway now and live there and I'm going to do spearfishing and I'm going to be, super good at it. And I just went in with the spear gun and I couldn't hold my breath, this is just another game. So I felt, from having these high expectations of being like super good until like, okay, I'm a complete noob. I have to, develop skills. And that was so good about it as well. Like you still learn. And I still learn when I do sport fishing as well with rod, but it's a little bit limited in like the different kind of like different things you develop in. Like it's kind of more, you kind of stagnate a bit in the rod fishing, I feel like. But in spearfishing, there's like so much things to even now improve in the same grounds, different fish to hunt, and it's so good. And also for me, it's a lot of about that kind of like you close everything out. Like when you go in the water, for me, I can't. You don't think of if you have any problems above the surface, doesn't get to you there. It's like you get access to a new world. And for me, like here, it was so exciting because, as you said, like I was sitting in the boat fishing up here in the north, and I thought like how it looks like amazing on the sonar here. It must be so cool to how it's gonna look like when I dive down. And some expectations were like a little bit, I felt like it wasn't that cool that I expected in some spots, and some spots were even cooler. So you kind of saw the fish from another angle, like, and how they behave and stuff like that. So I thought like going up in the north, I would see fish everywhere, but that was not the case. You still need to find the fishy spots. Like it's not like it's an abundance, but you have to know the spots and find the spots. So that's
especially with halibut, right? Because they're usually just group up more than a lot of
halibut is more like the halibut was like a long journey that me and my friends up there in Tromsø kind of embarked on, like long drifting in different areas where we thought we're going to see fish. And halibut often like areas where there's not so much other fish. So
just halibut.
Like halibut, just halibut and the prey, they may be like crabs and plaice and those kind of like small flounders, and of course there's some cod and other small fish there as well. But the areas we normally hunt is just like current areas where you have like a kind of a pebbly desert bottom, and you just do drifting, and you kind of it's I'm really glad that I met such good people there up in Tromsø that was also had that kind of illness, I would almost call it, like be able to to scout so much grounds without seeing fish and just continue in cold water, just having that kind of we were really, you really need to put a lot of work into finding halibuts, especially when nobody had done it so much. There was some guy who had done it, but not in the amounts of dives we had up there. It's just, So
did you? Sorry.
Continue.
Did you ever find areas where you have, like, let's say a female and then just a group of males around, like where they're just stacked near each other, or you're finding big solo
halibuts? Yeah, sometimes you can find a couple, but it's really rare. It's almost like you see one, and the smaller halibuts can lay a little bit stacked, but it's really rare. It's often that you do a drift, you see one fish, you get that, and then maybe you see another fish on another drift, and maybe you could see like two smaller halibuts close to each other, but they are not like schooling up. They can, like if they're hunting a bait fish ball, like my friend Joel and Elisabeth, they were up in Tromsø, and because I had this experience when I was fishing that I caught like, I think 13 halibuts on 20 minutes on the rod. Like they were schooling those halibuts. So my dream was always to find that, and I never managed to find it, but I still searched for those spots, and I found it now. And Joel and Elisabeth also found like where, they saw a lot of bait fish, and then they saw like maybe, I think, over 10 halibuts in 30 minutes, just like they were swimming, pelagically hunting, laying like everywhere. That was like one time.
So we see that here, where we see like with we get grunion fish. They're like the grunion run. I don't know if you experience that there. I'm really not that familiar with that area of the world, where it's a bunch of fish that get washed up, lay their eggs in the sand, and they get washed back out. When all the grunion come in at night, what people will do for halibut is they'll get in the water with a flashlight and just drift along the beach like you're talking about. But know they're there because they're all there getting like you said, hunting the fish, the grunion. So that's the best chance you have to see them. Other than that, it's like when you're just looking for other species, if you pay attention to the sand channels or, certain areas, you'll see them. But it's pretty, like you said, it's like that's like one per dive, maybe.
Yeah.
But
the California halibut? Or?
Yeah, just California halibut. Yeah. You see them on the sand. You just have to cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Like, similar to what you're talking about. Yeah. But I think one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, or just mention, that I thought was so interesting, is that, and it's really a testament to the culture in Europe, is that your mother got you into freediving.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say that there's not a lot of people here in California, let alone, the U.S., that mothers introduced them to spearfishing or introduced them to freediving. Wow. And I think Europe culture, freediving, where you guys are looked at like heroes, like just like our sports athletes. Yeah. So I just thought that was so interesting hearing that. I got a comment on that one. It's pretty cool.
No, but she's really cool. My mother, she's kind of like discovered freediving when she was older, and I thought, my mother was just a normal mother, a little bit boring, just like not living her life fully. And then, my father and her split, and she kind of like met up with an old friend, and she introduced her to freediving, and she went down to Egypt in Dahab, which is like a freediving mecca.
Right.
Do a lot of freediving competitions, and almost all top freediving athletes has been down there training, and and she just brought me there, and almost said, I was like, maybe I do a scuba dive or something, and she's like, okay, try freediving, and I took a course, and when you discover that all this time snorkeling around, you could just equalize before it hurts in your ears, and you can get further down. It was just like why don't they teach this in school? No, but for sure, it's like No,
I know. I've heard friends say that. I realized that if I do that, it doesn't hurt. But it's not supposed to hurt.
No. So that was when I was snorkeling around before that. It was just like, I couldn't get down because could hurt, and then people say equalize, and you can't do it because it's already swollen up. So yeah, no, but in Europe, like the freediving scene is mostly also what kind of like gets people into the sport of spearfishing. Like they start taking a freediving course, and then they're on. Because Norway is quite like, here they mostly they start spearfishing before they learn freediving, which is not that good, because they kind of like they see cool movies on spearfishing, and then they buy all the gear, and then they jump in the water, and they haven't practiced freediving, and the gun, everything is just. So you have a lot of used really good freediving gear and spearfishing gear out on Facebook markets, with people just buying a complete set, and then they don't invest so much in the freediving part, which I think is really worth it. To start with the freediving basics first, and then track some fish, and then second get your gun, kind of.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes it easier, because first of all, if your first time in the ocean, I've said this before, is spearfishing, there is a lot that is going on just with your gear. And when we were kids, we all started out when we were little, just, surfing and snorkeling and just in the water. So there was like, we already knew how to use a mask. We already knew how to put a wetsuit on. We knew all these things.
Yeah.
And then you take someone with no experience, and they add a gun, you have to hunt, they add fin, all this stuff, mask that's fogging up, nobody has any, With freediving, then I've heard people say, oh, well, the problem with freediving is then they start diving these crazy depths, and they really don't know. But if you learn freediving properly, you can mitigate a lot of those risks, and at least be able to be comfortable in the water, which people forget about, which takes a long time. Be comfortable in the water, be comfortable with the basic gear. Then you can add a gun to that, and then add hunting. And spearfishing isn't freediving, which you kind of found out, which I wanted to talk to you a little more about too, was, in Doha, right? Where you were in Egypt. No, not Doha. Dab. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mixed that up with Qatar or whatever it was.
Yeah. This is it.
Yeah. It's been a while. I forget the cities over in the Middle East, but so you were freediving there, and I'm assuming you guys were going pretty deep because of experience. And
we were training a lot. Like you get to crack the whole kind of code of the residual volume, how to equalize beyond when you can't equalize, like the mouth feel technique, and that was really cool. So then you could push yourself under 40 meters. So I managed to dive to 60 meters, and then I was the end of my stay there, and I felt comfortable with that. I didn't have the urge to push me further than that, because then it's such a mental thing, like going deeper, and I was really stoked by that. So I was like, okay, let's finish with that, like put the limit there, and then just be really comfortable just diving. So from there I just felt like I wanted to get into the spearfishing part and be able to use my skills from the freediving. But as you said, it's two different things. So I'm also very wary when I tell people, like, go take a freediving course, but don't take it if your aim is to, like, mix it up too much. It's in freediving, when you do freediving training and deep freediving, you have such a good, like, security system with two divers watching each other. It's a rope, it's a lanyard, you're connected. So if you kind of like get a false sense of safety there and trying to go as deep as you do with freediving as in spearfishing, and you don't have that buddy system, like you maybe have your buddy with you, but he's stalking another fish, and he just thinks you're breathing up on the surface, but you actually blacked out. So it's you gotta stay like interested in both the freediving and the spearfishing kind of like general rules regarding safety and boundaries and limits and stuff like that. I think because it can be dangerous to mix too much apnea technique into the spearfishing if you don't have a really good safety system.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a really good point. What were the difficulties? You said, you've been free diving and then you transitioned over. What were some of those things that you're like, wait, this is completely different?
It's completely different, like the kind of excitement and the adrenaline, the heart race. Like I was really good at getting my pulse down when I was deep diving, but even now when I see a halibut, my heart races. So it's just like it's just like that thing, like trying to when you used to free diving really calmly and you don't have any current, you just have a 3 millimeter suit, a couple of kilos on you, and now suddenly you're in Norway and you have a 7 mil suit, like 11 kilos of weight, and it's current pushing, and it's a halibut of your lifetime just under you, but you gotta swim against the current to stay on top of it, and then you just have everything you're taught that you shouldn't have, and then you have to dive, and that was, I had to adopt to not always having those comfortable dives. Sometimes you just gotta have a dive where you're exhausted, or you have a big pulse, or you have that one shot when I don't know if you've done that. I've tried it a bit here on big coalfish, where you sit back of the boat with a loaded gun and you jump off in the almost like in a speeding current, and you breathe up on the boat, and it's just like it's such a different thing to the calm
that is
meditation.
That is exactly how we dive for bluefin tuna. Literally breathe up on the boat. It's like being in a football game versus that's exactly. So you do that for cod, or what did you say?
No, coalfish. Like we have one ground that's really cool that I explored here in Lofoten. It's really mental kind of thing to do, actually, but it's one of the strongest offshore currents, saltwater offshore currents, where you just have like a window of 20 minutes where you can dive. So then you have to like find that time, and then you gotta find the fish, and then you're gonna jump in like the bluefin thing, and then you just have a couple of dives where you. So I always been excited to watch those blue. I never hunted the bluefin or any tuna, and I saw these clips of people jumping off the boat like you describe you do, and I felt like, okay, we could try this on this on this goldfish, and it worked, but it's just so exhausting. Like it's cool. It is. I like it a lot, but it's really hardcore. It's a different thing. Like, so if you do that to a person who never spearfished before and put him in the back of the boat with a loaded gun like that, so it would be just a horrible experience, I think.
Yeah, well, we've seen it where people here, they want to shoot that big 200-pound tuna, so they relatively new to spearfishing, and they pay the money and they go out, and some people can do it, and it depends too how the fish are behaving that day. Yeah. Others are like have this glazed over look, and they're like, what is going on? Like, just get in the water now, go. Yeah, hit the water, dive. Yeah. And it is the polar opposite of diving on a reef, deep diving, free diving. There's nothing.
No.
Some days are great for it, and some days I don't have the energy for it either. Like, I just kind of miss diving, the mental part of it. And then other days it's like, let's go get some tuna, So
it's also like the mood in the boat. Like I get like, aggressive if the people don't dive. I could sit there and like, dive now, what the fuck are you doing? Get in there.
I'm glad you said
that. They're messing around with the gun or something, and you're just like, okay, you missed your shot. Everybody missed it. And I kind of like, okay, I need to calm down a bit, but it matters so much. Like...
Hold on. Let me pull the boat back around.
Yeah.
Let's pull the boat back around. When I say ready, that means ready.
Yeah.
Don't fuck around. Be ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're fucking around. You need to get in the water and dive.
Yeah.
I've had that. And it's funny. I think that happens at the beginning of the day because people really don't understand.
No.
And then they're like, oh, okay. Yeah. No.
But it's funny. I did one. Now it's a thing. It's this thing that I have to deal with also, when you're doing the guiding up here and people want to come and spearfish, and I've had one experience that made me, you know, like always do background checking, you know, like asking question, how much have you dived and stuff like that. Because we have a little bit to work on there, because like spearfishing now, it's more viral kind of. So people think, you know, it's just like swimming down and shoot a fish, and people can even think that, and they can book a trip, you know, paying money to get to a place, and then when they're there, they realize, okay, you have to hold your breath, you have to, you know, like it's important for me to ask a lot of questions for clients coming, but also friends, you know, who want to dive, and I ask them, have you ever had a snorkel mask on you, those kind of things, because it's many elements to it. And especially here also in Norway, you have that like thick wetsuit. It matter more if you don't have the proper gear, and you feel a bit like cramped up with the suit as well. You could have a lot of like, some people get a little bit claustrophobic, and so, and you can't move around as much as if you know, had some childhood memories with a pole spear when you were little and stuff like that. It's a totally different game having a lot of weights on you and diving new grounds, kind of new environments. So,
well, let's talk.
Yeah.
Go. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. I just, what you're talking about, it's interesting, because you're right. So many people, they look at what they see on social media, and it's like, oh, I'll just pay money and do that.
Yeah.
But people don't see is that there's years spent developing those skills, you know. Sometimes it's luck, but really you have to be able to do it safely, I think, and enjoy yourself. You got to be able to manage your expectations. Let's get a little bit into your actual company, like Arctic Spearfishing, and then what's it like hunting giant halibut? How do you do it? How do they behave? How deep are they? Like, is the whole thing, so I guess people can get an idea of what to expect if they were to go with you.
Yeah, if they were to go with me, it's like, I would say, like, it's really good if you have that experience from hunting or catching, fishing, spearfishing before. Like, you know, it's not, you're not guaranteed to get a fish, you know. It's hard to get a halibut. It's hard. It's easier to go with me because I'm a guide and I know the places where they're at. But sometimes they're not there, and you always have to put a big effort yourself. It's not like, we don't do any chumming after halibut here. Doesn't work like the way it does in Alaska, for example. You have to be in the water. You have to look at bottom where you see absolutely nothing sometimes. And you have to do long drifts. You have to get cold. You have to get into that kind of, you know, you have to like question what you're doing, and then you have to do it even more, because that's the thrill when you see one, that feeling, and if you catch it, it's even bigger. But you know, you could search for a whole, like, normally we always see halibuts on our diving days, but it's not maybe you. It's maybe your friend who sees it, and then he gets a shot at it, and then the next day it's your time. Here is your fish. You see it. You swim down. It spooks, and then you just feel like you don't want to, you know, be where you're at. You know, you
don't want to go back to the surface.
I've seen so many guys like completely lose it. You know, like I had one guy that I almost like felt like I used some of my, you know, social work skills, you know, trying to, you know, talk him into a better space, because it was all dark, you know. He was just sitting in front of the boat, and it was dark. So no, halibut hunting.
I'm laughing because I think we've all been there. And when you described it, you sit there and you're like, what am I doing? Fuck this. I'm done with this. Yeah. But whatever it is, we just stay in that water. I'm too stubborn to quit, you know?
Yeah. So you got to have that, like, it's good to have that experience before, and you can experience it for the first time on my trips as well. But halibut hunting, if because we have a lot of other mixed spearfishing things here in Lofoten as well. We hunt cod, we hunt coalfish, we hunt a lot of other species, and they're always there, but they're not normally in the grounds where we hunt halibut. So when people want to go halibut hunting only, it's just like, okay, then you're in for a mission, you know. Then you just got to scout grounds, you got to, you know, jump in the water, you got to push yourself a little bit beyond what you mentally think you would do for a fish, kind of like, yeah. And we find them in waters from like 4 meters down to 20 meters. So when we hunt up here, we spend, you know, we free dive after the halibut, and sometimes you dive down and find them. But normally the best tactic is to just scout from the surface. You know, you swim as much and scout with the current from the surface, trying to find them. So
you have good visibility usually.
Yeah, so that's a key thing. That's why I do most of my trips in late autumn, because then the visibility is better and there's also more halibuts to see. So visibility is key. You can also find the halibut while diving down, but it's much harder. Like, so you want to do some deep diving as well, or not deep diving, but you want to dive down just for not getting too bored of just swimming around on the surface. I imagine when you do like pelagic fish like wahoo and stuff, you can also spend a lot of time just chilling on the surface, right? Trying to get them in, or sometimes you just want to dive down a little bit and just do something different, kind of.
Yes. Usually with those fish, because you're out, you know, in blue water, you dive down and you can look up and just look around and see if you dive down, if anything kind of comes in or gets anything's attention. With the halibut too, you're saying, so 4 to what do you say, 4 to 30 meter or 20 meters?
Now more like you could say like more like from 8 to 20 meters, kind of like. Yeah. Like as long as you see the bottom, kind of like in that range, and that's the different depths. But you have halibut living in all kind of depths. Like the halibut is a quite unique fish. Like some halibut likes to be in the shallows, some likes to be in the deep water. Some halibut live their whole life in 200 meters of water, and some halibuts, they live their life in the shallows. And it's just. You could, like, if you're a really good diver, you could dive down to 20 meters and find the halibut there. But I normally think, like, if you dive and you're able to see the bottom, you kind of like extend your possibilities to get a fish. Like, it's quite, but it's really nice if you. Sometimes we do diving as well, when you look after each other and you do deeper dives, and you do drifting with the current, and it's really nice to do those deep dives as well. And you get like pretty stoked when you find a halibut in that way, because it feels a little bit like roar, kind of like a little bit more of a sheep
accomplishment.
Kind of accomplishment. Yeah, that's right. That's a good word.
Yeah, so we have done something similar with hunting over kind of deep reef. If we're looking for grouper, we'll dive down to where we can see the bottom. Like, so if that, wherever that is, maybe we're diving, let's say we're diving on a 20 meter reef, we'll dive down to 10 meters, see the bottom, and then just drift and float. And then when we see something, we'll go down.
Yeah.
But that way you can cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And it also, so I imagine with the currents up there, you got to be basically like you're in a river. You're just drifting through.
Yeah, some areas where you're like you have to be good at like reading the currents and the tides in different spots, and you could check that out online, the tide schedules and stuff. But it's so depending on the local area you're at, So I figured out a way to find areas where you can do like comfortable drifting, which means like you could drift over a fish, and then you could, stay in the current and swim against it, not too hard, and be able to, breathe up and get a shot in. Because if it's too hard of a current, it's really hard to just turn around dive down and push against the current and the gun is wobbling, and you manage those things as well. But I prefer to like go to areas and then kind of time the drifting so you could stay on top of a fish even though it's a little bit of current. So yeah.
So how do you approach finding halibut?
It's like I have my if you find areas where you have tidal currents and you have like an area where you think like a flatfish would like to hang out, then halibut is gonna be there. And halibut can be in the thing like we discovered now recently is halibut is also in areas where we didn't think that they were before. Like when we started out in Tromsø, we were diving like certain type of areas only, and then we scouted some areas out and we didn't find fish. But then now when we get more experience, we kind of return to some of the areas that we kind of write off before, and we managed to find halibut on top of rocks, in kelp, so I feel like I still have things to explore and find out about this fish. Like and I've talked to some guys that I was guiding from Florida. They went to Alaska, and they told me a little bit how they hunt halibut there. So I kind of like, maybe I can try some of that too here. And it's so new still. Like it's like, yeah, it's just a lot of things that we don't know about that fish. Like, so that's also why it's hard for me to just say like you find halibut there and not in other places. It's just like they are where they are fish, but they are also in the normal like sandy, pebbly, small pebbly bottom kind of area with current. But they can also be like in grounds where you have a lot of bait fish and kelp and rocks and yeah. But I think current is a key thing. But now I've also have some spots that I found inside bays, like where you don't have any current, and I found fish there. So yeah,
I wonder. I think it just depends too. Like fish are feeding, that's when the current's important, and then when they're just sleeping, so to speak, resting, then they'll be in a cove, flat, just
chilling. And also like the halibut is like especially the big halibut they don't want to move around too much. They kind of like they have they're dominant enough so they can just lay on the bottom and wait for the prey to come to them, kind of. So that's why I think they like the currents also. But that's why you can also find them in places where there are not much current at all also, because then they just don't have to use too much power to get around. But normally when you see big ones swimming, you see them swimming with the currents. They just go up and they do a little boom, then so they're a cool fish. So the smaller ones are more active. They swim around, more pelagic. The bigger ones is just like, I would say, more of like a big vacuum cleaner on the bottom, just not moving too much, not spending too much energy, liking to take big preys, easy preys. So
so what do they eat? What all do they eat? I mean, obviously fish, but have you seen anything kind of unique?
And the big ones, they like the bigger the fish and the easier it is to catch, like big wolffishes and like clays, like other flatfishes. And also you have this kind of lump sucker fish that is moving really slowly. It's like a big ball almost, and it attaches to stones. And also easy prey that the big ones like. So, and the smaller halibuts, they hunt more cold fish, more cod, like more pelagic fish. So yeah, and it's cool. All the time I check what they eat. It's just like a thing you find out,
right?
Kind of.
This is a super cool fish, and I think that's why everybody's kind of fascinated with the areas where you guys are diving for them, like Alaska and then Norway. How did the Florida guys do that came did they get some fish?
They did very good. I mean, they totally had that mental illness I talked about, the positive mental illness where you just like you don't give up. you just push yourself, and everybody got a halibut. One got a sob story with a halibut ripping swimming around a rock and ripping the line, and he was just like, he wrote to me and said he still thinks of it every single day, And I said like, yeah, I'm sorry about that, but that's what you get when you're going diving, with me here up in the north of the halibuts. Like it's highs and lows. Like, yeah, that's what I like about the halibut spearfishing. If it would have been halibut everywhere, or if I would have managed to find grounds where they are everywhere, it wouldn't be the same thing. Like, it's just like a fish of a lifetime every time for me as well when I get one. Like I managed to be able to get people on the fish often. Sometimes I don't success, but then I feel like it's part of the game. Like when you come here, you can't 100% be sure to get a fish, but I would tell you that I would be putting in your best situation to get one. So there's no place in Norway I think you can guarantee a halibut kind of.
Right. That's everything with fishing, right?
Yeah.
How long are your trips?
My trips is I do different types of trips, but for example, my halibut camps, they kind of like you fly in and then you have 4 full days of diving, and that is almost what you can do. Like you could do more, but then you have to have some resting day between, because you get pretty exhausted by diving in cold water. Even though you get quite warm in your 7 mil suits, the body uses so much energy to stay warm. So when you only do halibut spearfishing and you don't focus on other species, you kind of like 4 days is plenty to be able to get a chance on a good fish. Yeah.
How cold is the water up there? I know
here
that the air is the worst part, right?
For me, who is normally dive in Tromsø, so Tromsø is colder. Tromsø is like, you get like 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much that is in Fahrenheit, but
let's see. I got it up right now. It helped me. So yeah, 42 degrees, 44.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So in Lofoten you have like between 8 and 9 degrees of Celsius. So that's
okay.
So I have like full with a heated cabin, and you drink a lot of warm tea, and you have like some people who, if they get cold in their 5 fingers, I got some mittens, kind of lobster gloves, the tri-finger glove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you dry your wetsuits up there? Like when you're talking about 4 days back to back.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, just from my experience diving in cold water, like in the 40s, getting stuff to dry, it's like you got to bring it all inside, put it in a heating room or something.
Yeah, in the shower heating room or something like that. Or, it's going to get wet anyway. So,
right.
So normally
we would get in the shower.
Get off that urine if you're peeing in your suit and stuff like that. But otherwise, I don't pee in my suit. So normally I just hang it up. I let it just be wet, and then there's still some soapy water in it, so I can get it on easily next day. But you have it here, like you're always gonna get shivering, and when you put it on, it's always cold. But like the setup we have here is like we have like the accommodation, with the shower, you get your suit on in there, and then you just go down to the boat, and then you're out. And then I have a heated cabin, and you put a wind jacket on if you want to be outside the boat. And then you do diving, and the sun isn't up for too long, so you have you dive between like 8 till 3 o'clock maybe, and then the sun's starting to go down, and you're finished. So normally that's what you have, like physically are able to do, like a 6-hour session, 6-7 hours, up to 8 maximum, and then you don't have it anymore. Like your body starts to shut down. you're not like dangerously cold, but your equalization starts, hitting.
And I understand.
Yeah. So but then you have like a warm house to get back to, and the thing I like to do with the trips is like we have such a good opportunity to bring the fish back. So it's a lot about also taking care of the catch, like showing how to fillet the halibut nicely. We vacuum pack all the fish. We get them back in styrofoam boxes, so we freeze the fish. And when the Florida guys came home, they sent me a picture of like the fish was still frozen. It was a 20-hour kind of trip back. So that just makes it so cool to be able to have, like, you could have 18 kilos of fish fillet with you per person back.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about that. What are the laws? Because you had mentioned Denmark was tough to get into for you when you went to Denmark from Sweden.
Yeah.
Sweden doesn't even allow you to have guns or spear guns.
I mean, in Denmark, you need to have like a license. You have to pay, I think, a little fee to spearfish there. In Norway, you don't have to have a license. The only problem could be like how you declare your guns. Like, I think you should declare it as a fishing gear instead of like because some of my clients, I don't remember where they're from. They were from, I think, Jersey. I think like it's
Jersey.
Part of, it's part of UK, like the Jersey Islands. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they were, declaring it as guns, and then they, the custom had a look at it, and but they got them back. But it was a bit of a hassle. But otherwise, it's regulations, like according to how much fish you can bring out and what type of measurement on the fish that you're allowed to take. For the halibut example, it's 84 centimeters is the minimum. And then you have a maximum limit.
Oh, okay.
It's 2 meters. So so it's a bit hard for us spearfishers. We do our best to stay in the limit, but we don't have that opportunity to to have it on side of the boat and measure it and then let it go if it's too big. So if it's too big, then you just have to let it back. You can't bring it into shore. So
I know, it's such a waste.
It's such a waste, yeah. But at least the ocean gets it back, but it's a waste anyways. But it's it's something that came with it's just the regulations because
it's good.
I think it's
the big ones are the breeders, the big ones pass the genes and all that. So, but I tell everybody too about the fishing thing. Everybody say it's fishing gear. Mm-hmm. When you make, it's like, oh, we got spear guns. They're like, all they see is guns. Yeah. Especially with us Americans and our reputation. When we travel, we don't have guns. We have fishing equipment. It's all fishing equipment.
Yeah. So, maybe you take the rubbers off and have that in another bag, and then it's not possible to use it as a weapon either. Kind of.
And that's another point, which I know there's been a big move for travel spear guns. And the thing I like about those is you can break them down and they look less gun-like. So you can, I've even gone as far as like take stuff apart and separate it, like your handles in a bag, this over here, so that when you're trying to, not necessarily sneak, but you're trying to get into countries where they have stricter laws, you just want to make it easier on yourself and not miss your flight either. So, excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, it has been really smoothly, like people getting their fish back home and they're getting their luggage in time and stuff like that. But always you have getting into Lofoten, you have some flights to do if you come from the States. Like you fly to Oslo, and then from Oslo you fly up to Lofoten, but then you have to take like another plane from Bodø out to Lofoten. So
okay,
it is like traveling to the polar circle. So you have to put a little bit of a effort into the kind of like taking, I think it's like 3 planes in total.
That's what makes it worth it, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's and also like for me here, sometimes I forget about that because I'm so used to living here, but a lot of my clients are just like, they book their trip to spearfishing halibut or other type of fish, and then they come here and they are just, immediately blown away by the nature. It's just like incredible. Like people come to Lofoten just to see, for the scenic stuff, like the mountains, the ocean, everything like that. So sometimes I have to tell myself, okay, Axel, you still have a good selling point in this as well. People are amazed when they just land and they're like, is this here? Are we gonna spearfish here? That just like
ideally spend a day or two, like you're talking about, spend a day or two spearfishing, get your halibut, and then be a tourist and go check out the country and the people, Yeah,
it's so great. You have so much things to do, mountain hikes. You have one of the best surf spots in Lofoten as well, or in Norway, here in Lofoten. So when it's so good because the hunting areas we have, it's just like in the spots where all the scenic things is. So that's what I love about spearfishing, like traveling with spearfishing, is like you get that plus like you do an activity. You're not only there taking, pictures, and you're able to like work in that environment, kind of like put yourself in there and trying to understand it and find resources there and be able to feed yourself for a week and then also bring that fish back and new experience and all that. And now it's very good to have that nature around you here with all the wildlife and everything. So sometimes I really have to remind myself to not get too jaded, when I see a lot of eagles and whales and orcas and and cool mountains and cool sunsets and northern lights and stuff. And people like, yeah, we saw a lot of lights yesterday. And I'm like, oh yeah, good. And then I remember, when I first saw it myself, I was just completely blown away. So yeah. So
yeah, you had mentioned the surfing part too. I forgot all about the surfing in Norway. We went there. I was going to go there for the group of guys I was working with went there for military exercise, and I remember looking it up, and it was like the article was Norway way, and it showed all these awesome surf spots, and pretty cool. It's just a ton, like you said. I mean, the orca whales and all that. I think everybody, we tend to get so jaded just in our own spot, and you're like, well, why would anybody? And so then you look and you realize why people come from thousands of miles to come here. Even in California. So with you, how do you like your halibut? I mean, how do you like cook your halibut?
I have so many different ways because my, as I said, I lived in a house together with my good friend Sebastian Ole. Ole is a guy from Norway and Sebastian is from Sweden, but he's also, his mother was from Japan. And all three of us just love cooking food. So that was just like, I'm happy you brought it up because that's another dimension to the spearfishing that I love talking about, like how you take care of your catch and how you cook it and all that. So we kind of experienced with different things, like everything from eating it on sushi to ceviche, and also because the art of cooking a halibut is like you don't want to overcook it. You want that like fat and juiciness of the fish to stay in the meat. So locally here, I think here in Lofoten, people, they tend to fry it too hard. Like you put it in a pan, you give it hell in the pan, and then it loses all the fat, and then you pour a lot of cold sauce on it or warm sauce, and then it's good, but it's a bit dry. So my favorite part is to take like the tail of the halibut. I have a little halibut for you here, like a stuffed one, like a children's halibut kind of. So I take like this part of the tail the whole tail. I remove this here, but I take the end part of the fish, and I make like a cut here, and I stuff it with butter and herbs, and then I just bake that whole thing in the oven. And I just have it on. I take it out before it's overcooked, and then all that, because it's so much fat in the side of the fish, like in those along those side fins. It's a lot of fat. So that kind of fat just like gets contracted into the meat, and then it's ready when the fish fillet gets released a little bit from the bone. Just take it out, and then you take the skin off, and then you just serve it to a lot of people. And super easy way to get to serve like really juicy, fatty halibut for many people, without standing there and getting paranoid that you overcook like every single steak. Or so you just serve that with some good mashed potato and some good butter sauce kind of, and yeah, it's just amazing. So and also, like, if you're frying the fillets, I always like to keep the skin on my fish, even like the cod, all the kind of fish, because that also holds on to the juice of the fish. Like, because if you just fry it in the pan without the skin, it's so easy for it to just like suddenly you just have a lot of things in your pan, like a lot of moisture in your pan, and then you realize you let go of all that good taste. So leaving the skin on is a favorite.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that with grouper too. Skin down, cook it.
Yeah.
Most with that skin down, and just flip it over a little bit, and then done. Yeah. What other fish do you guys hunt up there?
We hunt cod, like the Atlantic cod. I mean, cod must be like a very common name for fish. For a fish among us spearfish, but they look very differently. So the Atlantic cod is one species we like to hunt here. It's and we have, like, in that family of cods, you also have the coal fish, which is more of a pelagic type of fish that swims more in the free water, and it's more faster than the cod. So the cod is more like a little bit similar to the kind of behavior of a grouper, but it doesn't hide so much in their holes and stuff, but they kind of, a little bit slow moving, kind of can look like stare you down a bit, and then if they see you're after it, it spooks. But the coal fish is more like swimming like a pelagic school type of fish. And then we have like the plaice, different types of flounder, and we also have a monkfish, if you've seen that.
Yes, nasty looking.
Yeah, really nasty. The uglier they are, the better the taste. It's like it's a common saying here in Norway. The wolffish is also one thing we hunt. It's not so much wolffish here in Lofoten compared to Tromsø, but definitely a fish we also target. And we have this pollock. It looks like a coalfish, and it behaves a little bit like a cod and a coalfish at the same time. So it's also a really, really fun fish to hunt here, which is they get pretty big here in Lofoten, up to like 10 kilos, and the cod can get up to 20 and over, and the coalfish, like the one that I talked about when we jump off the boat.
Right.
It's one area there where we hunt where you can get them really big, like up to 20 kilo. So it's so we have different types, and I prefer like more mixing it up, and that's because I've hunted a lot of halibut, so I've gotten my halibuts, and I kind of like spending time on the mixed spearfishing as well, because that's like hunting cod and coalfish and pollock. You have more things to learn there and more things to improve in the way you hunt for that compared to halibut. Halibut is more like being really good at finding the spots and just be looking at the bottom, kind of. Then you have like, and how you have the best gear for it and how you kind of place the shots and stuff like that.
So that's actually one thing I wanted to ask you about was gear. And then I've also heard with halibut, people get very specific on the angle you shoot it and where you shoot it because the tear outs.
Yeah.
How do you guys prefer to rig for those big halibut?
Over the years, we have tried different type of rigs, and you want to have as much firepower as possible. That's what we concluded with. Still, you can do fine with, you can do fine with a double 16mm rail gun, but then you have to pay a lot of respect for the thickness of the halibut, so then you have to go super close. Like super close. If you want to get like a halibut over 40 kilo, you have to go super close with that kind of gun. But if you have, like, for example, a roller gun or a double roller or inverted roller or whatever, or a very long gun with a lot of bands, you don't have to go that close. So
that's our specialty here in California is gigantic, massive guns.
So that's also a thing. Like it could, like, so that's why we ended up choosing like the 110 centimeter roller gun, kind of, because if you have that really long rail gun or a big tuna gun that's really heavy, it's hard. Like, imagine like swimming around and drifting, and with a gun like that for a whole day, you get really exhausted. Like, you move around so much, and you have to like paddle a lot also, because sometimes the current pushes you and you want to get into one area where I recommend you to go. And so you want to have a little bit of mobility as well, because you're spending so much time in the water, swimming and moving around. So then a roller gun is good. But then we experience a lot with different types of spears as well, because you have the slip tips and all that. But it can be a problem when the halibut is laying on the bottom, right? So it's not like it's not in the free water. So we ended up on the 7.5mm shaft up to 8, and some of my friends up in Tromsø, they use like double barbs, but I only have single. Like you have like one barb and then one barb further up.
Right, a double flopper.
Yeah. So and then you have a breakaway system. But I always have the options for clients who come if they're not used to, roller guns and stuff like that. I always have the rail guns as well. And the easy setup, we just attach it to the buoy, like the float line. You have a big buoy and a float line, because not all the people are not used to breakaway. So if you have a lot of clients who are not used to that, you will end up losing guns because they will be, not holding on to the gun. So per now, I haven't lost a single spear gun who has been attached to the float line. So it's okay to have it attached to the float line, and then you get really close with the rail gun, shoot it, and then it swims away. And if you have a solid rig, it holds. But I can imagine if you only do that, you can end up like having an entanglement and stuff like that. It's so powerful, and it could rip off your spear gun. So if you're very fond of your spear gun, a breakaway is always recommended.
Nice. And then, those sound like pretty regular setup gear that we use here. 8mm shaft, double flopper. Do you usually shoot them in the mid-water? I mean, do you shoot a lot of them in the mid-water, or are they on the bottom mostly?
They're on the bottom. Like sometimes you find them swimming, and then if you're lucky, they swim slowly so you can get on top of it and shoot it. And then you almost always get it because you're able to penetrate it. But it's very common. Like I've lost a couple of fishes laying on the bottom. I get really close, and it looks like it lays on sand, but then it's like maybe a stone this big, and you manage to hit that when it penetrates, it just jumps off and you just pierce the halibut. And that's why we get so paranoid with the angle. Like you want to have a good angle, so if the fish lay on the bottom like this, you don't want to shoot it like that, because then it can easily bump off. But if you have an angle and it still bumps off, it can still get attached to the flesh or skin or something, bone structures in there. Yeah,
good point.
But yeah, firepower is good if you want to like get all the way through. But even though you don't get all the way through always, if you get it in the good part of the like head, it often jams in there pretty good when it swims. So it's kind of like it kind of like creates a tension there that gets the spear stuck in a way when they kind of swim away. But they pull really hard, so you have to have your gear in order. That's also a thing I always check with people bringing their own gear. I really like people bringing their own gear, especially if you travel all around the world and you want to have the gun you're good at shooting at. But I always check if it's properly rigged, if it's fresh crimping or if it's good knots on the Dyneema, and if everything is in order. It's so sad when you lose a fish due to rigging. We all have been there. I have been there. Like I've lost a good rife gun with a GoPro attached on it, having the like cool fish of my life, like a big school. Really cool. I was really looking forward to the footage. When I realized I lost my gun, I felt like I still have my camera. It's all good. And then the camera is attached to the gun. It's also lost. So yeah, it was bad rigging. I didn't check the knots after my gun had been dragged by a 70-kilo halibut for like 30 minutes, and it was all worn down the line, so it just snapped. Yeah,
that's brutal.
Yeah,
that's brutal. So what's next for you? Like what are you looking to? What are your goals for the next couple of years?
I've been really happy about people coming from the States here. I really like you Americans, like you good sports, like friendly clients coming here. Like everybody is like, all the Americans I had so far has been very like, you seem to like have done spearfishing a lot, and also that kind of spearfishing charter thing, which is quite rare in Europe. Like I'm the only one I think now in Norway who does it. So, and I kind of like seeing that it's created a lot of interest, and I think it's really rewarding, like for me as well, to meet people from places where I don't normally meet people. Like I had some guys coming from Australia as well, and since you have that kind of like spearfishing charter things going on in the States, is people are more used to that over there, and more used to the whole thing, kind of like some Europeans here, they have experienced that they have come, like they come and you see they're almost taking photos of the GPS locations, and they're kind of like, okay, let's do one trip with this guy, one guided day trip, and then we just try to smash it out ourselves, and kind of like, yeah. So
yeah, that kind of can get you in big trouble here.
Yeah,
there's an etiquette.
Yeah,
we're very focused on etiquette.
Yeah. So you it seems like it's a lot of like common sense and respect in that kind of like type of business when you run a kind of charter back at your place. So I'm happy now. I have a lot of clients coming now from the state next year, so I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, and for me, it's more like trying to make every year better, like kind of like looking at different things you could do to make it as good experience as possible for the people coming, and also like trying to learn more about the halibut, trying to bring people along on that journey. Like I always ask, some clients are really, they're really on board of like trying new things, because it's so much uncharted grounds. Like there's not many people diving here. So I have areas that I haven't dived and nobody in the world has dived. So when you tell that to people, they get really excited and maybe want to try it out, even if it's a hit or miss. So I'm really looking forward to like taking people to places that nobody has dived before and trying to like maybe crack some new codes on the halibut or for coalfish or big cod. And yeah.
I got excited just hearing that.
Yeah. No, it's always awesome when you have people, willing to also do that little bit of extra adventure, go a little bit further, trying that out. So I have some plans in the future for some kind of like really like hardcore scouting missions as well, where you go maybe even further north or maybe you camp more outside, because now we have a setup with the accommodation, everything comfortable with kitchens, like living rooms, beds, all that things, and close distance to some restaurants and stuff like that. But you could also do really wild camping out. Like here in Norway, you're allowed to put up a tent anywhere in the nature. So you could, like, for example, go with the boat and anchor it up and just sleeping in a big lava tent and just catch your food and cook it on the beach kind of thing. Like I've seen some people do it in Baja, right? In Mexico. There's some
Baja, yeah.
Baja.
Yeah. You could pretty much do it. Well, you can't do it here too much, I guess, in campsites, but other places like the UK, I'm sorry, not the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Ollie, Craig does a bit of that down there. For his videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What kind of made you just decide, like, as you had said, there's nobody up here. What kind of made you just decide to pull the trigger and go and get a charter?
No, it's just like, first it was people asking, because we were, posting, we're shooting halibut, and people were just, can you show us? And then I asked some of the friends that I was diving with, because for me, like, I don't think I would be in this spot and I don't think anybody actually without your dive buddies, the ones that go with you and kind of keep your interest going, and the things you get fanatic together with them. So I have a lot of those people up in Tromsø. So they also, were very supporting, and I tried to, in the beginning, just see if more people were into like doing it together, but people have their things going on, and I felt like, okay, I just do it myself now and try it out, and felt ready, because we had been diving and scouting the Tromsø area for many years. So I thought like, okay, let's try some guided day trips and see how it goes, and from there it was just, it's been a journey, and I'm really thankful for all the people, helping me out. And like I always say, it's like two sides of Arctic spearfishing. You have like the guiding kind of business that I run, and then you have like the more community crew kind of thing, like the guys and girls who were diving together in Tromsø, and we're still diving, and it's more like two different things, kind of. So I want to pay a lot of gratitude and respect for all the people that I've been together with and diving. And then I just realized, okay, I can try to do this as a guiding thing, and it worked out. And then it's just been very nice to try to develop it. And I took it from Tromsø down here to Lofoten, because this is where I live now. So, and here it's better for the type of different species also. Like you have the pollock, you have the big coalfish, the cod. So yeah.
What boat do you use?
I use like a aluminium boat, like looks a little bit like the boats up in Alaska. It's not much details. There's no room for cruising with champagne and shrimps. It's more the flat big deck in the back and a front cabin, a bench inside. I just wanted it to be as less detailed as possible and just a lot of deck space. heated cabin. It's 7 meters long, 2.5 meters wide. It's like a good stable workhorse. Some people can call it a tank, kind of like it's. It looks a little bit like an aluminium tank. It's really good. I do some a little bit of like commercial fishery in the winter, or not commercially, but you're allowed to sell like a different amount of cod in the winter. So I do a lot of like fishing after that. So then it's good to also be able to kind of convert it into a fishing boat in the winter time when it's off season.
Yeah, deck space is key on a boat. I don't care. Like that's the number one thing, especially with diving. Just need that space. How many people do you take on your?
I take up to. I have up to like 6 divers, but my dream scenario is groups of 4 people up to max 5. Like if you're experienced crew, 5 people can easily come. But if 5 people want to trying it out, it's it can be a lot of messing around in the boat and could be too high on my blood pressure. It's now it's just the smoothness, people jumping in, getting in at the right time, and all that kind of things. It just makes for a better experience if you're not too many people. I think definitely. But 4 or 5 people is good.
I was just thinking with the boat, and you want to do those adventurous tours, more adventurous stuff. I mean, do you have the good fuel range just to go for it, spend the night, keep going?
Yeah, I can absolutely. But always when you buy a boat, like this is the first boat I have, you always looking out for bigger or different setup. It's just like holding on to your wallet a little bit now with the fuel prices here in Norway is a bit shocking. So yeah,
I cannot imagine filling a boat in Norway, let alone a car.
You have to close your eyes and almost erase your memory after each time. And also, if you want to buy an engine, you pay like. They have some like regulations with taxes on outboards here, so you pay like 1,000 Norwegian kroners, which is maybe could be like 8 or 900. No, like 9. What do you say? Like 90. No, like you pay 1,000 Norwegian kroners per horsepower. So like. So if you have a 150 horsepower engine, you pay 150,000 Norwegian kroners. So I don't know if that's like $14,000 on the engine.
That's crazy.
I don't know if it's pretty expensive. So you don't see many quad setups here in Norway as you have in the or doubles and stuff like that. Rarely see doubles. So I only have a single engine, 150 horsepower. So
I like to keep it simple.
Yeah, it's simple. It's reliable and it's good. So you can't go too fast here, anyways. But it's a good boat. It's a good diving boat. It really served the purpose. And especially the heated cabin is good. I did some guiding from an open boat in October some years ago, and that was cold.
That sounds terrible.
It gets you because in October when you do halibut hunting, you could have like -3 degrees Celsius outside. It can be snow and ice. In the water, it's warmer, but it's when you get up in the boat and you get the wind, that's what you get cold into your bones. Like,
I did some diving up in Washington, and it was like that. It was in the 40s, and then it was snowing outside, and it was terrible. It was in the water all day long. It was just terrible.
What do you hunt in Washington?
This was for work. We weren't hunting anything, but I remember I had a hole in one of my wetsuit gloves, and eventually by 6 hours later, like my arm just was numb. At first it was like my hand, then it was my forearm, then it was just my arm, and it just like I lost all dexterity. And it was just like you have a kink in your armor, and over hours it just it gets you. And taking a shower, and I'm sure you know this, taking a shower, you have to be careful not to burn yourself because you can't feel anything.
I know that feeling.
So, and you just feel cold, even though we used to have a diver rewarming system. We called it. It was a spa. So we just used to buy it company stuff.
It was like more commercial diving than like work that welding and stuff like that. Or?
This was just the rigging stuff up, and it was. We were putting in like 4,000-pound clumps for pens to hold like it's kind of wild dolphins and other stuff. So have you had any sketchy experiences with orcas or any wildlife out there?
Yeah, like orcas, not. You could say I have sketchy moments with orcas because in the wintertime in Tromsø, when we don't do so much hunting, normally the whales migrate there to feed on the herring that comes into the fjord system. So then we have done a lot of like freediving with orcas and humpback whales. And sometimes when we did that, we were a little bit too eager to dive like the bait balls of the herring. So you're kind of getting surrounded by orcas, but they don't do anything. But the sketchy part is when the humpback comes, from underneath and you have to get away because otherwise you could get like smashed. So that happens one time that I just saw a couple of white big wings and I realized it was a humpback, so then I had to really swim hard to get away from it. So it's more like the dangerous parts about that type of diving is more like collision kind of damage.
Right.
They don't go after you, but there's a big animal and it's a bit silly of you wouldn't, I always say that to people, like you wouldn't go into the woods if there were like a 30-ton, moose there with this kid, like you would pay more respect. You wouldn't go up with the GoPro like really close, try to look it in their eyes, it's
some
especially with
would. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I said some people would once.
Yeah. Some people want that, and I can't. I feel like with the history we have with whaling and almost extinction, all the whales and how intelligent they are, I'm fine if they put a little anger on us when we come there and with our cameras and stuff, but they're not. So
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's just respect. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then they're also when you're in that, I don't do that much diving up there in Tromsø anymore with the whales, but when we did, I always felt like maybe one of them has a bad day, maybe it's get irritated enough, and then they smack you with their tail, and then you're gone. But the sketchiest things I experienced is actually with halibut. It's like we've been really good, like developing safety around that, because I have one like YouTube video, I think it's really old now, that is where I get my first big halibut with my friend Ole, and I shoot it, I think 4 times. I think it's dead. We have it attached, we have it up on the boat, like in the water, and we bleed it for a lot of minutes, and it's completely bled out. And then it started to get alive again or something, like really moving, and it punctured the proton of the Zodiac boat we had, like a rubber boat.
Oh.
So during that action, my friend lets go of the fish, and I grab the fish like this, because it's attached to a hook, and it just go mental, and I'm just there in the water. The spears is just everywhere, and we're freaking out about the boat and stuff like that, but we managed to have like some air chambers left in the boat, so it didn't sink. So then we got called for help, and we got the fish back in the helping boat, and everything was fine until I showed the video to my girlfriend, and she almost hit me because she got so mad. Like, look what you're doing with the fish, you're holding it in the water. It's a lot of spears. One of those spears could have, penetrated easily, So that's when we developed. That's where I took like a thing from sport fishing, where if you get a big halibut, you take a tail rope around its tail to handle it better. So then we figured out that, okay, if you shoot a big halibut, you put a couple of spears in it, you dive down with the rope, attach the rope to the tail with a hangman knot, and then you secured it, then it's fine, you know. You swim up with it, the rope, you take the rope up in the boat, you get the fish up, and before you take it in the boat, you pull the spears through the fish, so you don't have any spears coming with you in the boat, and then you just pull the fish in. So we never swim up with like a fish that's over 30 kilos, because you take so much dangerous situations away when you have that tail rope tactics, I would say. Because if you swim up with a fish, you think it's dead and it's starting to kick alive, and it can easily circle you and then down to the bottom. And then line management is especially you guys who also hunt for bluefin tuna and stuff like that. They can get pretty crazy when you put a spear in a nerve spot or something like that. It's very unpredictable.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We do the tail. I've done the tail rope too. It's kind of nice. Yeah, because you just, especially with slip tips, what I found with slip tips, you put a slip tip in a fish, it spines it, it paralyzes it. When that thing slides out or adjusts, it comes back to life sometimes. And
you also
just got to be careful.
Like, that's really crazy. I was wondering if that happens to us people as well.
Yeah,
like it's really weird. Like, and especially the flatfish must be like, a flatfish must be one of the fishes that can handle the most trauma, I think there is. Like, when I worked in a fish store back in Sweden, you could like get a really fresh flounder, and the nerve system can still kick in, so it can still like flop around in the bag after it being like dead for a long time. That you can't never forget that with a halibut. It's also flatfish, so like the nerve kicking in, like you could have a halibut that's been dead for hours in the boat, and then if somebody just pushed the right spot on the fish, it can start like this, and it can get dangerous because it's 90 kilo big. So
I have noticed that as well. With that's funny you say that. I noticed that too with halibut. We had I stabbed, and I brought it up to the boat. It was only 15 probably kilograms.
Yeah.
But that thing did not die. I mean, it just was still going crazy hours. But so, and their teeth, that's the other thing. I mean, they have some teeth on them. Did you notice that halibut are aggressive, can get aggressive? Have you ever had an aggressive halibut?
I've seen like aggressive halibut in Alaska. I saw one guy, probably seen the clip where the halibut gets like, just wants his gun. I don't know if it's aggressive behavior or it's more like it thinks it's a fish. I think the spear tip or something like that. But the halibut hasn't been aggressive at all. Like that.
That's good to know, because my buddy got attacked by a halibut. We were joking around about it, but we were at work scuba diving. He came down and there was a halibut in between the two, and one of them hit it with a poker, like hit it just like, hey, get out of here.
Yeah,
and it went towards him and turned to go back, and maybe because it felt trapped, he was there, and it actually bit his air hose. And we all thought he was full, and like wouldn't let go. It was like, we all thought he was like full of crap, but there was air, shooting everywhere when he came up.
That's great.
So it was like, and he's like, he got attacked by a halibut. We were just laughing at him, making fun of him. And there was holes all in his rig and everything. And I was just curious if you had seen that.
Of that, like, because my dear friend Elizabeth, she told me that, like, because we found a halibut that was probably 2.5 meters long, and when we find those big halibuts, we say we catch them with the camera instead. You swim down and you film it, because they are so dominant. So most of those fishes, they just lay there when they're that big, so then you can swim down and have a look at it. And we all did that, getting real close, and you could see the fish. Halibut, I think the Californian halibut also has, it sees you always. It's like they can see you like 360. So you get the real, like, if you have a halibut weighing over like 400 pounds looking at you, and you're getting close to it, and you're like, wow, this is so cool. And then we talked about it in the boat, and Elizabeth said, like, maybe what happens if it's, attacks us? And then I started thinking, like, that would be, it could really do damage. Like, their mouth could really, like, grab onto your leg and do damage. Or swim down with you or hit you, or just an immense amount of power. But per now, we haven't had any, I haven't heard about it, and I haven't had other experience about them being aggressive. Only the only dangerous thing is when you shoot them, and sometimes if you shoot them, they can decide to go up like this and then do circles or stuff like that. So line management again, I'm still waiting for an accident to happen, not on my trips, but I always tell people a lot about it. But there's a lot of Norwegians now out there hunting, and people who don't, you could buy new gear, get out, and be very lucky to find one, and then you don't think of line. You could be attached to the line or something like that, and it can really pull you. I mean, you have no chance of. I don't think people believe, who are not used to spearfishing big fish or pelagic fish, understand how much power it is in a fish that wants to go down. It's you think you can hold on to it and stuff like that. No, you get dragged down. With
the bluefin, I'm shocked no one's died from the fish.
I'm still waiting.
Yeah, it's incredible
that to happen. Somebody gets entangled in a marlin or something like that, or a big tuna or a halibut. That's why you want to have a dive knife always. Get that thing off you, or
at least give yourself a chance.
Yeah, I had one friend getting entangled in a line with a 90-kilo halibut, but he had that thing with it was attached to its leg, and then he managed to get the fin off, and then it slided off from the leg thing. So, but it wasn't deep. So that's the thing. Halibuts normally they rush along the depths that they are laying in. So if you shoot a halibut in 10 meters, it's often gonna stay on that depth, or even go a little bit shallower after you shoot it. It's not so common that it goes down to search for deeper water. It's rushes really hard, but then it lays down because it thinks it's getting away from the danger and it's camouflaged. But you have the boys, so you know where it is. So, yeah.
Well, very
Thinking
cool.
of, do you want to try it yourself? Go Atlantic halibut spearfishing? Have you done?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. No. I've just seen, the Alaskan stuff, and I saw your post on Instagram, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about, because I thought it's so unique. Not that many people think of going from warm water to cold water and freezing themselves off in hours to hit a halibut. But what a cool adventure just to go to places where not a lot of people dive, because I just think that's I think us as a divers, we just want to explore anyways. That's kind of why we do it. So why not go to a really cool, unique area,
Yeah, it's definitely something else. That's what I'm motivated on continue doing this, because I think I'd love to try the warm water and the blue water spearfishing and the reef spearfishing and stuff like that. I can't wait to do that myself. But I also like this cold water spearfishing here, because it's so different. It's so different from what you're used to, and the thing about this area here is most of the cold water areas has some problem with the visibility. You go to Alaska, you always. I haven't been there myself, but I've heard the visibility can be a struggle. But here the visibility can be really good, so it can almost look like you have tropical bits, and it's in the north, so you get to see it's like, have you dived New Zealand? Have you been there?
No, I haven't.
No, it's a little bit similar there. Some areas with the kelp and it's a bit of cold water there as well. And also the location of it. If you look on the map and it's just wow, there's the spearfishing to be done there, and that's what I like about this place. Is I could easily just drive 30 minutes or 20 minutes with my boat and dive in an area that nobody has dived. It's that few people who do it. And you don't have any sharks that's also a big thing. Like most of my clients coming from sharky areas, they can't let go of looking back their shoulders if they are on a nice, like, reef drop off or something like that. And I'm telling them there's no sharks there. Relax. And they're like, but should we really bleed a fish in the water? Are you sure it's not, coming fish? No, just hang on the buoy, and they're like, no way, man, that would be possible where they come from. So well, that's a big thing. No sharks.
Axel, thank you. Thank you for taking the time and meeting up. And so how can people contact you? What's the best way to get a hold of you? You want to book?
Best to get a hold of me is through my, contacts on my webpage, arcticspearfishing.com, or write me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook. But it's better to shoot me an email on the website, and we take it from there. And I also have, like, when people contact me for more information, I have this good, like, file PDF documents with a lot of, like, detailed info about more of how to get here, what to expect, what type of seasons you want to go. It's so much details. Like, I really want people to have as much information about, like, trying to match what they want to go after. Like, so you have different time when it's good to come here, different type of trips that I offer, and all those things you could read about on the homepage, and the more detailed stuff you can get from me if you just contact me. So yeah,
awesome.
That's the easiest part.
Well, thank you so much, Axel, for sharing all of this, and hopefully
it was great talking to you.
Yeah, it was really great, and